What if I told you that the key to financial freedom isn't earning more, winning the lottery, or chasing the next big investment, but simply transforming how you see money? This is the story behind Your Money or Your Life, a groundbreaking book by Vicki and Joe Dominguez that has helped millions of people around the world escape the cycle of debt, stress, and paycheck-to-paycheck living, not by making more, but by making smarter, more conscious choices with the money they already have. It's not about becoming rich, it's about becoming free from financial anxiety, free from working a job you hate just to survive, free from spending habits that drain your wallet and your spirit. This book doesn't offer hacks or hot stock tips. It offers something far more powerful, a complete step-by-step system to help you take control of your money, align your spending with your values, and reclaim your most precious resource, your life energy. So what if every dollar you spent reflected what truly mattered to you? What if your job supported your life instead of consuming it? What if your money could buy you time, peace, and purpose? In this deep dive into your money or your life, we'll walk through the 9 transformative steps that can reset your financial reality and your life. By the end, you won't just have a new way to budget, you'll have a new way to live. So, get ready, because once you see money through this lens, you'll never trade your life for a paycheck the same way again. Chapter 1: The Money Trap, the old roadmap for money. Let's begin with a moment of truth. Most Americans today are living paycheck to paycheck, burdened by debt and constantly worried about money, despite having more income, more possessions, and more technological convenience than any previous generation. So what's going wrong? This chapter opens with that fundamental question and pulls the curtain back on a harsh reality. The way we've been taught to think about money is deeply flawed. The authors, Vicki and Joe Dominguez, refer to this inherited way of thinking as the old roadmap for money. It's the model passed down through generations. Work harder, earn more, spend more, repeat until retirement. It's so deeply ingrained in our culture that most people don't even question it. The problem is that roadmap no longer works, if it ever really did. It was built for a world that barely resembles the one we live in now. In post-World War II America, the economy was booming, housing was affordable, jobs were stable, and pensions were common. Under those conditions, the promise of work hard, buy a house, retire comfortably made sense, but the game has changed. Today, wages have stagnated, the cost of living has skyrocketed, debt has become normalized, and the safety nets previous generations enjoyed have frayed. Yet, we're still following that outdated map like it's gospel, and it's leading millions into what and Dominguez call the money trap, the illusion of progress. From a young age, we're told that earning money is the main purpose of adult life. Do well in school so you can get a good job. Work hard so you can make more money. Climb the ladder, buy the house, drive the nice car, take the vacation. That's the narrative. It's sold to us in movies, on TV, in magazines, and social media. We equate financial achievement with personal worth. Promotions, raises, and material wealth are badges of success. Yet behind the scenes, many people feel trapped, unfulfilled, and burned out. Why? Because they're doing everything right, but they still can't breathe. They're working more hours, taking fewer vacations, and feeling less secure. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness. We admire people who grind 60-hour weeks, always hustling, always striving. But at what cost? Our health, our relationships, our time. The authors point out that most of us don't own our time anymore. Our days are dictated by work, commutes, obligations, and financial stress. We trade hours of our lives for dollars, then spend those dollars just to keep the cycle going. Life energy as currency. Here's where the chapter introduces its core revolutionary idea. Money is simply something we choose to trade our life energy for. Every dollar you earn costs you time, actual irreplaceable hours of your life. Let's say you make $25 an hour after taxes. That's not just your income, it's your life energy exchange rate. So when you spend $100 on a night out, you're spending 4 hours of your life. That dinner didn't cost you money. It cost you time you'll never get back. Now expand that across your whole life. All the gadgets, clothes, toys, and impulse purchases. How many years of your life have you exchanged for things that no longer hold value or meaning? When you really grasp this idea, it changes how you see everything. Suddenly that $8 coffee isn't just overpriced, it's a chunk of your life. That new iPhone might be the equivalent of 2 weeks of labor. It forces you to ask, was it worth it? The beauty of this concept is its simplicity. It strips away the complexity of financial jargon and gets to the heart of what really matters, how we use our one precious life. The trap gets deeper. The chapter goes on to examine how society reinforces the trap. Advertising exists to make us feel incomplete, so we'll spend money trying to feel whole. We're sold the idea that buying more will finally make us happy, but it never does. It's like trying to quench thirst with salt water. Worse, we use spending to cope with boredom, sadness, frustration, and even our lack of meaning. We're not just consuming goods, we're self-medicating. Retail therapy isn't a joke, it's a symptom of a culture that's out of alignment. Debt plays a huge role in the trap too. We've been conditioned to believe that debt is just a part of life. Student loans, credit cards, car payments, mortgages, it's all seen as normal. But debt isn't neutral, it's a time thief. It commits your future life energy to repaying things you already consumed. It limits your freedom to change careers, take time off, or pursue passion projects. In this system, we're not just workers, we're consumers first. Our value is measured by how much we buy, not how much we live. The myth of more. One of the most dangerous illusions exposed in this chapter is the idea that more money will solve our problems, that if we could just earn a little more, we'd finally feel secure, finally be able to relax. But that moment never arrives. Most people who get a raise don't save more, they spend more. They move to a bigger house, upgrade their car, take fancier vacations. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it keeps you stuck on the treadmill. The finish line keeps moving. Even people earning 6 figures often feel broke. Why? Because their expenses grow with their income. And because money alone doesn't create happiness, it only amplifies your habits. Work and identity. Another key point is how deeply work is tied to our identity. Ask someone, "What do you do?" and they'll tell you their job title. But that title often says nothing about who they really are or what they truly care about. This entanglement keeps people in jobs they dislike, sometimes for decades. They fear losing the paycheck, but they also fear losing their identity. If I'm not a manager, a teacher, a doctor, who am I? Robin and Dominguez ask us to separate what we do to earn money from who we are as people. Because your job is just a function, it doesn't define your worth. The cost of obedience. The old roadmap for money is, in many ways, a system of obedience. It teaches us to stay in line, keep working, keep spending, keep consuming, and not ask too many questions. But when you finally stop and ask, "Is this working for me?" you start to wake up. Maybe you're tired of giving the best hours of your day to a job you don't love. Maybe you've been chasing a lifestyle that looks good from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Maybe you're ready to stop living someone else's version of success. This chapter invites readers to step outside the system and observe it. Don't judge yourself. Don't panic. Just notice. Where is your money going? How does it make you feel? Is your life moving in the direction you want, or are you simply moving? The turning point. The message at the end of the chapter is clear. Awareness is the first step to freedom. Before you can change your relationship with money, you have to see it clearly, not just the numbers, but the emotions, the habits, the assumptions. You have to be willing to question what you've been taught. This isn't about becoming frugal for the sake of it. It's about becoming conscious. It's about realizing that every financial decision is also a life decision. That money isn't the point. Life is the point. The trap is real, but so is the way out. And that's what the rest of the book is about, building a new roadmap for money, one that leads not just to financial independence, but to personal liberation. It begins with one question. Are you making a living or just making a dying? Chapter 2. Money ain't what it used to be, and it never was. Money. It's the one thing we all use, all want more of, and all think we understand. Yet very few of us stop to ask a simple question. What exactly is money? In this chapter, the authors dive deep into the origins, myths, and illusions surrounding money, exposing why most people are confused and conflicted about it. And it all starts with this uncomfortable truth. Our beliefs about money are mostly inherited, unexamined, and often wrong. The title says it all. Money ain't what it used to be, and it never was. We live with the illusion that money is real, stable, and objective, but the authors argue that money is not a fixed truth. It's a social agreement, a shared belief system, kind of like religion. It only works because we all pretend it has value. To understand that, we have to go back, way back, to the early days of barter, the evolution of money. Before money, people traded things. My goat for your grain. Simple but limited. Bartering required a double coincidence of wants. I had to want what you had, and you had to want what I had. It wasn't efficient, so humans came up with a more flexible system, currency. First, it was shells, stones, or salt, things considered valuable. Later, it evolved into metal coins, then paper backed by gold, and eventually, what we have now, digital numbers in bank accounts. And here's the twist. Today's money is no longer backed by gold or anything tangible. It's called fiat money, which means it only has value because governments say it does, and we all agree to believe it. In truth, a $100 bill is just a piece of paper. It's not worth $100 in materials. Its value is entirely symbolic. So if money is made up, just a shared story, why do we let it control our lives? That's the real question this chapter asks. Money as a symbol. Money is powerful not because of what it is, but because of what it represents. It symbolizes security, success, love, freedom, power, or even self-worth, depending on your personal experience. And that's where things get complicated. For some people, money means survival. For others, it's status. For someone raised in poverty, money may represent safety. For someone raised in wealth, it might represent independence from their family's control. Your emotional relationship with money has deep roots, and often it's unconscious. The chapter asks readers to reflect, what does money represent to you? Is it freedom, control, love, respect? This question unlocks the emotional side of money, because money is never just about dollars and cents. It's also about meaning and emotion. We use money to meet psychological needs. We buy things to feel better, to impress others, to show love, to avoid fear. And advertisers know this. They don't sell products, they sell feelings. That's why a luxury car ad is all about status and desire, not gas mileage. But here's the problem. When we chase money for emotional reasons, we give it power over our lives. We confuse money with happiness. We mistake net worth for self-worth. We think more money means a better life, until we get more and realize it doesn't fill the void. Money and identity. The authors explore how money shapes identity in American culture. We live in a capitalist society where what you do is often synonymous with who you are. Your income becomes your label. That's why people are reluctant to talk about money. It feels too personal, too exposing. If you make a lot, you're considered successful. If you don't, there's often shame attached. And this stigma fuels secrecy, jealousy, and anxiety around money. No one wants to admit they're struggling, even though most people are. We pretend everything's fine. New car, nice clothes, dinner out, while silently drowning in debt. Money becomes performative. We act wealthy, even if we aren't, because looking successful is part of our identity. But that performance comes at a price, often a high one. Credit card bills, overwork, financial stress, and a deep sense of being out of control. Inflation and the illusion of value. The chapter also addresses inflation, the silent force that erodes purchasing power over time. $1 today doesn't buy what it did 20 years ago, and yet we rarely account for this when making life decisions. We're told to save money for retirement, but most people don't realize how much money they'll actually need. If you save $100,000 over 20 years, that money won't go nearly as far in the future as it does now. Inflation makes your savings worth less over time. So again, what is money? If its value can change based on policies, markets, or time, can it really be trusted as a foundation for your life? The takeaway is this: money is not solid ground. It's a moving target, a shapeshifter, and if your entire sense of security is based on it, you'll always feel unstable. Scarcity versus enough. Another key idea in this chapter is the difference between scarcity and sufficiency. Most people live in a scarcity mindset. No matter how much they have, it's never enough. They're always chasing more income, more stuff, more success. It's a mindset rooted in fear, the fear of not having enough, of not being enough. The authors argue that this is a cultural illness. We've lost the ability to feel satisfied. Capitalism depends on dissatisfaction. If people felt content, they'd stop buying. So the system keeps us yearning, consuming, and believing that the next purchase will finally do it. But real peace comes from enough. When you can look at your life and say, "This is sufficient," you step out of the hamster wheel. You stop chasing and start living. That doesn't mean you stop earning or striving. It just means your motivation shifts from fear to purpose, changing the narrative. The chapter closes by calling out the core lie we've been sold, that money is the goal. In reality, money is just a tool, a means to an end. It's like food, it nourishes, but you don't live just to eat. Likewise, you shouldn't live just to earn and spend. Instead, the authors suggest we redefine our relationship with money. Start seeing it as life energy, something you trade your precious time for. Ask yourself, is what I'm buying worth the hours of life I gave to get it? This reframe is powerful. It cuts through the noise and hype. It helps you see money not as something magical or mysterious, but as something you control. It puts the power back in your hands. This chapter isn't just a history lesson or an economics talk. It's a mindset shift. It encourages you to unplug from the myths, look behind the curtain, and start asking better questions about how you use your money and your life. Because if you don't define what money means to you, someone else will, and that someone is likely to profit from your confusion. Chapter 3. Where is it all going? Most people don't know where their money goes. They know how much they make, sort of. They have a rough idea of their bills, maybe. But when you ask, how much did you spend last month on eating out, on gas, on Amazon purchases, you'll likely be met with a shrug. This chapter begins by pointing out a simple, powerful truth. You can't take control of your money until you know exactly where it's going. This chapter is about waking up from financial autopilot, It's about pulling your money out of the shadows and dragging every dollar into the light, because you can't fix what you don't track. The goal here isn't to guilt you about your spending, it's to help you become conscious of it. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. Facing the truth. Robin and Dominguez argue that most of us live in denial when it comes to our finances. We sort of know that we're overspending. We kind of sense that things are off. But it's uncomfortable to look too closely, so we don't. We rationalize purchases. We swipe the card and promise ourselves we'll figure it out later. We pay minimum balances and keep moving forward. But underneath the surface is a growing sense of unease, of being out of control. The antidote to this anxiety is data, facts, truth, and that begins with tracking the daily money log. This chapter introduces one of the core practices of the entire program, the daily money log. It's simple. Every time you spend money on anything, you write it down. You don't round up or estimate. You don't wait until the end of the month. You log it right away in real time. This could be in a notebook, a spreadsheet, or a mobile app. The point is to make it a habit. The authors argue that this isn't about budgeting. It's about awareness. You're not judging your spending, just observing it, like a scientist, like an anthropologist studying your own life. Every dollar is a data point. This process often reveals surprising patterns. You think you only spend $100 a month on takeout. Turns out it's $300. You thought gas was your biggest cost, but subscriptions, late fees, and random shopping are eating away more than you realized. The daily money log is like a mirror. It reflects back the truth of your behavior, not your intentions, not your guesses, your actual choices. The monthly tabulation. At the end of each month, you take your daily spending data and organize it into categories. The book suggests keeping it simple. Rent/mortgage, utilities, groceries, eating out, transportation, medical/insurance, clothing, entertainment, gifts/donations, education, debt payments, savings, miscellaneous. The key is to total how much you spent in each category and then reflect on two essential questions. Did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the life energy spent? Is this expenditure in alignment with my values and purpose? These two questions are at the heart of the chapter. It's not just about cutting expenses, it's about aligning your spending with your life. Let's say you spent $400 on restaurants. Maybe you had some amazing nights out with friends. Maybe you barely remember the meals. Which of those experiences gave you real value? Which were just autopilot spending? Or maybe you spent $150 on books and feel amazing about it. Why? Because learning and growth are values that matter to you. That $150 may have brought more fulfillment than the $400 spent on fast food. It's not about spending less. It's about spending consciously. The goal is to ensure that your money is going toward what you truly care about, not just habits, convenience, or impulse. Shifting the emotional relationship. This process also reveals your emotional patterns. Do you spend when you're bored, sad, lonely, stressed? Do you use money to feel better, to reward yourself, to distract from discomfort? When you track your spending, you start to notice these emotional triggers, and once you see them, you can begin to change them. You can pause. You can ask, is this really what I want to do with my life energy? This chapter encourages you to shift your relationship with money from passive to active, from emotional to intentional, from reactive to reflective. Real-life example. One story in the chapter describes a woman who believed she was frugal. She cooked at home, drove an old car, and rarely shopped. But when she started tracking every dollar, she discovered she was spending over $300 a month on online games and app upgrades. Little $3, $5, $10 charges that she'd never noticed. When she saw the total, she was stunned. She didn't even enjoy the games that much. They were just a way to fill time. Once she saw the pattern, she cut the spending, canceled the subscriptions, and redirected that money to weekend hikes and art classes, things that actually brought her joy. That's the power of awareness. Why most budgets fail. The chapter also critiques traditional budgeting. Most people think budgeting means restriction. It's a chore. It feels like punishment. That's why budgets often fail. They're based on willpower, not wisdom. This method is different. It doesn't start with limits. It starts with understanding, with consciousness. Once you know where your money is going, then you can decide if you want to change it. Not because you should, but because you want to. It's not about deprivation. It's about liberation. Discovering your money habits. By the time you finish one full month of tracking and tabulating, you'll likely experience several aha moments. You'll see where your money leaks out, what brings the most fulfillment, what's misaligned with your goals or values, what spending no longer serves you. It's not uncommon for people to cut $200 to $500 in monthly expenses, not by trying to be frugal, but simply by choosing differently. And often they feel happier, not deprived, because they're spending on what matters and eliminating what doesn't. Turning the corner. Once you've built the habit of tracking, it becomes second nature. Some people say it feels like turning on a light in a room that was always dark. You see clearly, you feel in control. You stop being afraid to look at your bank balance. Because now you know. The authors emphasize that this isn't a one-time activity. It's a lifelong practice, like brushing your teeth. You don't track money because you're obsessed. You track because you respect yourself. You respect your time. You respect your life. And here's the secret. Once you get honest about where your money goes, you often need less of it. You stop wasting it. You stop chasing more. You stop needing to earn as much just to keep up with your unconscious spending. That's the beginning of freedom. Not financial freedom someday. Freedom right now. The freedom that comes from clarity, from choice, from knowing that you are the one in the driver's seat. Because once you see where your life energy is going, you can finally begin to point it in the direction of your dreams. Chapter 4. How much is enough? The quest for happiness. What if everything you've ever been told about success, security, and satisfaction was wrong? What if instead of chasing more, the real secret to happiness was discovering enough? That's the core question of this chapter. How much is enough? Not just in terms of dollars, but in terms of fulfillment, peace of mind, and purpose. The authors invite you to stop asking, how can I get more? And start asking, when will what I have be enough? This chapter shifts the focus from tracking money, as covered in Chapter 3, to evaluating value. It's no longer just about where your money goes, but about how much life you're getting in return for what you spend. Redefining the concept of enough. We live in a culture built on the myth of scarcity. Even the wealthiest people often don't feel secure. Why? Because they've been conditioned to believe there's never enough. Enough money, enough stuff, enough status. But the truth is, the more we chase more, the more we feel lacking. It's a psychological trap. You get the raise, but it's not enough. You buy the car, and a nicer one catches your eye. You go on vacation, then scroll through Instagram and feel like you missed out. Robin and Dominguez call this the fulfillment curve. It's a simple graph that shows the relationship between spending and happiness. At the beginning, spending money increases fulfillment. You meet your basic needs like food, shelter, and safety. Then, as your spending increases to include comforts like a reliable car or decent furniture, happiness continues to rise. But here's the key insight. At a certain point, more spending leads to diminishing returns. That $30 meal may bring a lot of joy, but does a $300 dinner bring 10 times more joy? Probably not. In fact, beyond a certain level, more spending can even decrease your happiness. because it adds stress, clutter, debt, or obligation. So the question becomes, where is your personal peak on the fulfillment curve? That's your point of enough. The fulfillment curve in action. Let's say you buy a new pair of shoes. The first pair meets a need. You didn't have proper footwear. That's high fulfillment per dollar. But the 5th or 10th pair? That's fashion, not function. You're chasing a feeling, not solving a problem. Same with housing. A small, comfortable apartment may meet all your needs. But a bigger house means more cleaning, more maintenance, more furniture to buy, and possibly more isolation. The bigger isn't always better if it doesn't add meaning to your life. This chapter encourages you to think of your spending in terms of sufficiency, not abundance, not minimalism, but enough. Enough is the sweet spot. It's the place where your needs are met, your desires are honored, but your life isn't buried under excess. Measuring fulfillment with every dollar. The authors introduce a powerful habit. Each month, for every spending category, ask yourself, did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the life energy spent? Is this expense in alignment with my values and purpose? This isn't about guilt, it's about wisdom. You're not trying to cut expenses blindly, you're trying to maximize meaning. Let's say you spent $150 on a weekend road trip. It brought joy, connection, adventure. Great, that's high fulfillment. But maybe you also spent $250 on impulse buys at the mall that you barely remember. That's low fulfillment. You start to realize money isn't scarce, attention is. And when you pay attention, you naturally start directing your money to where it matters most. Your enough point is unique. Here's a critical idea. There's no one-size-fits-all definition of enough. Your point of sufficiency is personal. For a minimalist, it might be a tiny house and a bike. For someone else, it might be a big family home and a minivan. The key isn't the number, it's the alignment between your spending and your values. What makes you feel whole? What gives your life meaning? Those are your signposts. If you value time with family, but your spending keeps you working overtime just to afford things you don't use, something's out of balance. If you value creativity, but you've cut every expense that supports your art, maybe it's time to reconsider. Enough is about freedom, not restriction. It's the freedom to stop hustling for more and start living with intention, escaping the status game. This chapter also takes a hard look at the role of comparison. In America, we're constantly shown images of what success should look like. New cars, designer clothes, big homes, expensive hobbies. We compare ourselves to others, neighbors, co-workers, influencers, and feel like we're behind. But we're playing a game we can never win because someone will always have more. The authors remind us, money can buy comfort but not contentment. You can't spend your way to self-worth. If your sense of value depends on what others think, you'll always feel vulnerable. Enough, in contrast, is an inner decision. It's saying, this is sufficient. I'm grateful. I don't need more to feel whole. And ironically, when you make that shift, you often find yourself experiencing more joy, more peace, and even more generosity, because you're no longer guarding your money with fear. You're using it with purpose. Time versus money. Another powerful part of the chapter explores the tension between time and money. Many people say, I'd love to have more time for myself, but I can't afford to work less. But when they analyze their spending, they realize they're working to fund things they don't even care about. What if instead of working more to earn more, you worked less and needed less? Imagine cutting $500 in monthly expenses, and suddenly you could reduce your work hours, or start that side project, or spend more time with your kids. That's the hidden promise of enough. It creates choices. It gives you back time. Because money is renewable, you can always make more. But time, that's the real non-renewable resource. And once you frame your financial decisions around maximizing life, not stuff, you start to reclaim the moments that matter. A life inventory. The chapter encourages readers to go beyond money and evaluate life itself. Where are you investing your energy? What are you saying yes to? What are you missing out on? Are you choosing a high-income career at the cost of your health, creativity, or relationships? Are you spending money to save time, but then using that time on things that don't bring joy? These are tough questions, but they're essential, because when you define enough, you begin to define your life. You stop outsourcing your happiness. You stop letting advertising and culture tell you what to want. You create your own metrics of success. Enough as a practice. Like everything in this program, finding your enough is not a one-time revelation. It's a practice. It evolves with your life. What was enough when you were 25 may not be enough at 45. As your values shift, so will your fulfillment curve. The key is to stay conscious, curious, and honest. Robin and Dominguez encourage you to regularly check in with yourself. Is my life aligned? Am I spending time and money in ways that reflect what I truly care about? Because at the end of the day, you're not just managing money, you're managing life energy. You only get so much. And when you start directing that energy with clarity and purpose, life changes. Not because you got rich, but because you discovered something much more powerful. Sufficiency, gratitude, peace, purpose. That's what enough feels like, and it's available not someday, but right now. If you're willing to stop running and start noticing what already brings you joy. Chapter 5. Getting it out in the open. Most of us have lived our financial lives in the dark, guessing, assuming, avoiding, reacting. But in this chapter, the authors hand us a flashlight. It's time to bring our financial reality out of hiding and see it clearly. This step is about facing the truth, not just about what we earn or what we spend, but what it's all worth. This chapter is practical, honest, and deeply liberating. It introduces one of the most powerful tools in the entire Your Money or Your Life program, the wall chart. But before we get there, the authors walk us through the process of creating a real, complete financial picture, something most people have never done. Why? Because it's scary. Seeing your net worth, what you truly own minus what you owe, can be confronting, but it's also freeing. Because once you know the truth, you can stop guessing, stop fearing, and start choosing. Step 1. Calculate your lifetime earnings. The first eye-opening exercise in this chapter is to figure out how much money you've earned in your entire life. That's right, all of it. You go back through your job history, tax returns, social security statements, freelance work, gigs, anything that paid you money, and total it all up. For many people, this number is shocking. Even someone with modest income might discover they've earned $500,000 or more over a few decades, yet their savings account balance might only show $2,000. So where did it all go? That question hits hard, and it's supposed to. This exercise is a wake-up call. It forces you to reckon with the fact that you've traded years of your life for that money, and most of it has vanished. But again, this isn't about shame. It's about awareness. It's about taking ownership of your financial past so you can take control of your financial future. Step 2. Calculate your net worth. Next, you take stock of what you have. You list out all your assets: cash, savings, retirement accounts, investments, property, vehicles, anything of resale value. Then you list your liabilities: debts, loans, credit card balances, unpaid bills. Your net worth is the total of your assets minus your liabilities. For some, the number is positive. For others, it's negative. Either way, it's important to face it, because your net worth isn't a measure of your value as a human. It's simply a snapshot of your financial position at this moment in time. And just like stepping on a scale, it gives you a place to start. Step 3. Understand where you stand. Now that you know how much you've earned and what you have to show for it, you can start to see patterns. How much of your income went toward building assets? How much went to interest payments, lifestyle inflation, or disappeared into unconscious spending? You might find that you've spent 10 times more on cars than you've saved for retirement, or that your biggest lifetime expense wasn't your house, but food and eating out. Again, the goal isn't guilt, it's clarity. This information is fuel for change, because once you understand your patterns, you can start to redirect your future income toward what really matters. Step 4. Introduce the wall chart. Here's where it gets visual and powerful. The wall chart is a tool to track your progress over time. It's simple, a monthly graph that shows your total income, total expenses, and cumulative investment income. Each month after completing your tracking and tabulation, you plot 3 points: how much you earned in dollars, how much you spent in dollars, how much income your investments generated in dollars. Then you connect each category's points with a line, month after month. Over time, 3 lines begin to take shape on your chart. The income line. This shows what you're bringing in. The expense line. This shows what you're spending. The investment income line. This shows the money your savings are generating. The magic moment is when your investment income line crosses above your expense line. That's what the authors call the crossover point, and it represents financial independence. At that point, your investments cover your basic living costs, and you no longer have to work for money. This is the long-term vision of your money or your life. But even before reaching the crossover point, the wall chart gives you a sense of control, clarity, and motivation. You can see your progress. You can watch your expenses drop as you align your spending with your values. You can feel proud as your savings grow. The chart becomes your accountability partner, your visual journal, your reality check. Step 5. Make the invisible visible. This chapter is all about turning invisible habits into visible choices. When you chart your data, you make your financial life tangible. It's no longer a fog of transactions and stress. It's a map. And with a map, you can navigate. The wall chart doesn't lie. If your expenses spike, you'll see it. If your savings stall, you'll know. But that's the point, to see clearly and respond wisely. Some people even post the wall chart in a public place, on the fridge or a bulletin board, not for bragging but for engagement, because money decisions happen every day, not just at tax time. And when your goals are visible, your behavior changes. Emotional reactions are part of the process. As you dig into your financial truth, it's normal to feel a range of emotions: shock, regret, guilt, even grief. Maybe you're thinking, I can't believe I've wasted so much, or why didn't I do this sooner? The authors reassure us, this is part of the process. These feelings are signals, not failures. They show that you care, that you're ready to change. And the good news? No matter where you're starting from, you can begin right now to move forward with intention. This chapter encourages compassion. Be gentle with your past self. You made choices based on what you knew. Now you know more, and you're choosing better. Financial clarity equals emotional freedom. By getting it all out in the open, you release a massive burden. You stop carrying the fog of unknowing. You stop living with vague financial anxiety. You have numbers, you have patterns, you have a plan. And with that clarity comes power. The power to say no, the power to change jobs, the power to start something new, the power to build a life that's aligned. You no longer need to hope or fear, you just act. That's the quiet promise of this chapter. When you face your financial truth, you find your freedom. Not because you suddenly have more money, but because you stop wasting the precious resource that is your life energy. You realize this isn't about money. This is about living deliberately, authentically, and consciously. And that begins with seeing clearly everything, the numbers, the patterns, the progress, the truth. Because only when your financial life is out in the open can you begin building a life that's truly your own. Chapter 6, The American Dream, On a Shoestring. This chapter dives deep into the heart of what it means to live well on less. It confronts the cultural myth that a good life requires a high income, constant upward mobility, and a never-ending stream of material upgrades. Vicki, Robin, and Joe Dominguez don't just challenge that idea, they dismantle it piece by piece with personal stories, logic, and empowering alternatives. At its core, this chapter is about reclaiming the American dream, but redefining it on your own terms. Not the glossy TV commercial version filled with SUVs, two-story houses, and maxed-out credit cards, but a leaner, lighter, more intentional version. One built on purpose, not pressure. One where you're not just earning and consuming, but living. The problem with the traditional dream: we've been sold a particular story. Work hard, earn more, buy more, move up, repeat. That story is so embedded in American culture that questioning it almost feels unpatriotic. But the authors argue that the traditional American dream has morphed into a trap. Why? Because the dream keeps escalating. Once it meant a modest home, a steady job, and enough to get by. Now it often means a new car every 5 years, a kitchen renovation every 10, a vacation twice a year, the latest phone, TV, laptop, tablet, smartwatch, private school, extracurriculars, and summer camps for the kids, a wardrobe for every season and occasion, and all of it is normal. But this version of normal comes at a price. Stress, overwork, debt, exhaustion. People are doing everything right and still falling behind. Many Americans are living one paycheck away from financial disaster. Robin and Dominguez argue that the system is designed this way. It rewards consumption, not contentment. If you're satisfied, you stop buying, and the economy doesn't want you to stop. But here's the real tragedy. Most people never question the system. They just assume they're the problem. If I made more money, I'd be happy. If I worked harder, I'd be secure. If I had more stuff, I'd feel successful. But the problem isn't them, it's the system. A different kind of wealth. So what's the alternative? The authors introduce a radically simple idea. Frugality is freedom, not deprivation, not scarcity, but smart, conscious, joyful frugality, the kind that lets you live below your means. Not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself. The kind that helps you build savings, gain flexibility, and reclaim your time. They offer examples of real people living the American dream on a shoestring. A couple with 2 kids living on $20,000 a year and still saving. A single woman working part-time, growing her own food, and living debt-free. Families who buy used, fix things, share with neighbors, and build vibrant lives without high incomes. These stories aren't about martyrdom, they're about choice. These people aren't poor, they're intentional. They know what they value, they live by those values, and in doing so, they achieve a kind of wealth that has nothing to do with net worth. The true components of a rich life. This chapter encourages readers to look beyond income and ask, what makes a life truly rich? The answers are surprisingly universal. Time with loved ones, health and well-being, meaningful work or purpose, a sense of community, creative expression, peace of mind, experiences over things. You don't need a 6-figure salary to have these things, but you do need to stop wasting money on things that don't matter and start directing your energy toward what does. That's the big shift. Once you identify what makes you feel alive, you can start designing a life around those things. And in most cases, They cost far less than what the commercial dream demands. Strategies for living well on less. Robin and Dominguez don't just give you the theory, they give you the how-to. Here are some of the key strategies they offer. Distinguish between needs and wants. Sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. A need keeps you alive and functioning. A want is everything else. The more you meet your true needs efficiently, the more life energy you save. Buy quality once. Cheap is expensive in the long run. Invest in durable, well-made items, even if they cost more up front. Over time, they pay off. Repair, reuse, repurpose. A throwaway culture is a costly culture. Learning basic skills like sewing, fixing electronics, or growing vegetables can drastically reduce expenses and increase satisfaction. Barter and share. Borrow tools from neighbors. Share childcare with other families. Swap goods and services. A strong community is an economic asset. Use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. This old-school philosophy is incredibly effective. Most of us buy far more than we need because we don't pause to ask, can I make this work? Embrace simple pleasures. A picnic in the park, a home-cooked meal, reading a good book. These moments are often more satisfying than high-priced entertainment. Get off the upgrade treadmill. New doesn't always mean better. Learn to appreciate what you have instead of chasing the next version. Escaping the consumption mindset. One of the biggest ideas in this chapter is that consumption is a habit, not a necessity. We've been trained to seek fulfillment through buying. It's emotional, habitual, even addictive. The book describes how advertisers spend billions to create dissatisfaction. You don't have enough. You're not enough. But their product will fix that. And the scary part is, it works. We fall for it again and again. But when you step back and become a conscious consumer, you break that spell. You see how your triggers work. You recognize emotional spending, and you stop being a puppet of the market. Instead of spending money to feel better, you start creating a life that feels good without spending, a life that fits. The goal here isn't austerity, it's alignment. The authors want you to build a life that fits. Like a well-tailored outfit, it doesn't sag with excess or pinch with scarcity. It's customized to your values, your needs, your vision of enough. Some people will want a tiny home in the woods. Others might live in cities, bike to work, and grow herbs on their balconies. The point isn't how much you spend, it's why you spend it. When you stop buying into the bigger is better lie, you unlock an amazing realization. You already have enough to be happy if you stop wasting it on things that don't bring joy. Practical example, redefining success. The authors describe a man who earned $80,000 a year, drove a luxury car, and lived in a fancy apartment. From the outside, he looked successful, but he was stressed, always working, and rarely had time for his kids. Eventually, he downsized, moved to a smaller place, sold the car, took a lower-paying job with more flexibility. Now he earns $40,000, but he walks his kids to school every day, cooks dinner at home, and sleeps better. His standard of living dropped, but his quality of life soared. That's the American dream, reimagined, redefining wealth. This chapter ends by encouraging you to redefine wealth entirely. Wealth isn't how much money you make or how much stuff you own. It's how free you are, how aligned your life is with your values, how much time you have to do what matters most. That kind of wealth can be built on any income. It just requires a different mindset, a willingness to let go of the default dream and create your own. Because you don't need more to live better. You need less of what doesn't matter and more of what does. And you can build that life on a shoestring, starting now. Chapter 7, For Love or Money, Valuing Your Life Energy, Work and Income. This chapter is a deep dive into the real cost and value of work, not just what you earn per hour on paper, but what you're truly getting paid after subtracting all the hidden costs of employment. It's about taking a long, honest look at how much life energy you're trading for money, and whether it's worth it. Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez don't want you to simply earn more. They want you to earn wisely. They want you to understand the full picture of your job, its monetary return, emotional toll, time drain, and how much it aligns or doesn't with your values. This chapter asks the provocative question, are you working for love, or are you stuck in a relationship with money that's all obligation and no joy? The real hourly wage. We all know our official hourly wage, or at least we think we do. Maybe it's $25 per hour, $40 per hour, or $15 per hour. But that number is a fantasy unless we subtract all the hidden, real-life costs of working. This chapter introduces a powerful calculation. Your real hourly wage equals monthly take-home pay minus work-related costs, divided by total monthly hours devoted to work. It's eye-opening. Let's break it down. What are work-related costs? Here's what most people forget to include: commuting costs, gas, car wear and tear, parking, public transportation, tolls, work wardrobe, suits, dry cleaning, shoes, uniforms, meals and snacks, take-out lunches, vending machine snacks, coffee, childcare. If your job keeps you away from home, you're paying someone else to raise your child. Stress-related expenses, therapy, retail therapy, comfort food, alcohol, prescriptions, escape spending, expensive vacations to recover from burnout. Convenience costs, grocery delivery, take-out dinners, hiring help because you're too exhausted. Add those up. Then consider the time you spend because of work, beyond your shift hours. Commuting time, getting ready in the morning, unpaid overtime, or staying late. Decompressing after work, work-related errands or meetings on weekends. Extra hours spent networking, training, or responding to work emails at home. Now, redo your math. If you earn $4,000 a month, but you spend $1,200 on commuting, takeout, and childcare, and you devote 260 total hours per month to work-related activity, your real hourly wage is $4,000 minus $1,200 divided by 260 hours equals $10.77 per hour. Not the $25 per hour you thought you were making. That's the shocker. Suddenly, a dinner out that costs $40 isn't just a splurge. It's 4 hours of your life energy. This is the lens the authors want you to adopt. Money is life energy. Your job is how you trade time for survival. But if you're not paying attention, you might be trading your life away for far less than you think. What are you really working for? Once you understand your real hourly wage, every dollar takes on new meaning. You begin asking, is this purchase worth the time I spent earning it? This shift turns you from a reactive spender into an intentional one. You stop chasing more and start maximizing value. It also makes you ask the big question, is my work worth it? Work, joy, or jail? This chapter confronts the emotional side of employment. Many people hate their jobs, but stay because of fear. Fear of not finding something better. Fear of losing stability. Fear of being without identity or purpose. But the authors argue that staying in a job solely for the paycheck, especially if it costs you peace, health, and relationships, is one of the biggest energy leaks in modern life. They aren't saying everyone should quit their job and start a farm, but they are saying we should align our work with our values, that we should examine, does my job allow me to grow? Do I feel respected and fulfilled? Am I sacrificing my health or happiness for a paycheck? What am I really trading my life for? Many people discover that they could live on less income and actually feel richer because they have more time, more health, more creativity, and less stress. Love work versus money work. Robin and Dominguez define two types of work. Money work. This is work done purely for financial survival. It pays the bills. It may or may not align with your interests or values. Love work. This is the work you would do even if you weren't paid. It's meaningful. It lights you up. It aligns with your purpose. Ideally, your work can be both, but even if it's not, you can still create a life portfolio that includes both types of work. For example, maybe you work 30 hours a week at a money job, but spend 10 hours writing, mentoring, or volunteering, things that bring deep satisfaction. That balance matters. It keeps your spirit alive, making the shift. The chapter offers a path toward shifting your work life. Track your real hourly wage. Get honest. Know what your time is truly worth. Start minimizing unnecessary work-related costs. Bring lunch from home. Carpool. Work from home when possible. Small changes add up fast. Find ways to earn more per hour. If you can increase your income without increasing hours, great. That could mean asking for a raise, switching careers, freelancing, or developing a skill. Explore ways to reduce work hours. What if you could work 4 days instead of 5? What if you could live on less and use the extra time for what matters? Integrate love work into your life. You don't have to quit your job to pursue your passion. Start small. Create, teach, coach, build. Even 2 to 3 hours a week of meaningful work can transform how you feel. Redefine success. Instead of measuring your life by your income or title, measure it by your joy, purpose, and how much of your time you own. You are not your job. This chapter dismantles the belief that your job equals your identity. You are not your role. You are not your salary. You are not your LinkedIn headline. You are a human being trading time for money, and you have the right to question whether that trade still makes sense. This mindset shift is powerful. It helps you say no to toxic jobs, seek flexible work arrangements, prioritize health over hustle, value time over status, the deeper meaning of work. Ultimately, this chapter argues that work is more than a means of income. It's a way of participating in the world. It's how we contribute, connect, and express ourselves. But when it becomes solely a survival mechanism, it drains our energy. It becomes a trap. That's why redefining your relationship with work is essential to gaining financial independence, not just in dollars, but in spirit. The authors leave you with this core insight. Your life energy is sacred. Don't spend it mindlessly. Don't give it away to things that don't nourish you. You can earn with integrity. You can spend with clarity. You can work with joy. And it starts by asking, is this job worth the time I'm giving it? Because every hour matters. And you don't just want to make a living, you want to make a life. Chapter 8. Catching Fire. The crossover point. There's a moment in the journey to financial independence that changes everything. A moment when your money starts working for you instead of the other way around. This is the crossover point, and this chapter is all about reaching it. Vicki, Robin, and Joe Dominguez describe the crossover point as the point at which your monthly investment income equals or exceeds your monthly expenses. When that happens, you're no longer dependent on a job or paycheck to survive. You're free. It's not retirement in the traditional sense, where you quit work at 65 with a gold watch. It's liberation. From that point on, you can choose whether to work, how to work, and for whom to work, not because you have to, but because you want to. This chapter is where the whole system of your money or your life clicks into place. Everything you've done so far, tracking your spending, calculating your real hourly wage, aligning spending with values, reducing expenses, and saving aggressively, builds toward this one breakthrough moment. The 3 key lines on the wall chart. By now, you should have your wall chart where you track 3 monthly numbers: income, expenses, investment income. Over time, if you're living below your means and investing the difference, something amazing starts to happen. The investment income line slowly rises, and one day it intersects with the expense line. That's the crossover point. It's the moment when the passive income from your investments covers your basic living costs. When that line crosses over, it means one powerful thing: you are financially independent. This doesn't mean you're wealthy by society's standards. You may not have a mansion or a yacht, but you have something far more precious: freedom of time. That's true wealth. What counts as investment income? Robin and Dominguez are careful here to explain what they mean by investment income. It's not just dividends from stocks or interest from bonds. It includes any steady passive income that doesn't require you to trade hours for dollars. Rental income, royalties, dividends, interest, pensions, social security, eventually, annuities. The key is that these income sources are independent of your labor. They continue flowing whether you're working or not. They stress the importance of choosing low-risk, income-producing investments, because the goal is not to get rich quick. The goal is security, sufficiency, and freedom. This isn't Wall Street hustle or day trading. It's about building a solid, stable foundation.
From saving to investing, a mindset shift.
Up until this point, the focus of the program has been on tracking and saving, but now the focus shifts to investing. This transition is vital and psychological. Many people who've been conditioned to live paycheck to paycheck find it hard to shift from a scarcity mindset to one of building wealth. Even when they have some savings, they're scared to invest it. What if they lose it? What if the market crashes? The authors address this fear head-on. They remind you that your investment capital isn't just money, it's stored life energy. You worked for it. You chose not to spend it. You honored it. Now, the job is to put it to work for you, not recklessly, but intelligently. Financial independence doesn't mean doing nothing. A big misconception about financial independence is that you'll just lie on a beach or sit on the couch watching Netflix. The authors challenge this idea. Most people don't want to stop contributing. They just want to stop doing meaningless work for survival. Financial independence gives you the freedom to choose. Want to write a book? Now you can. Want to volunteer full-time? Do it. Want to start a business without worrying about making a profit right away? You've got the runway. Want to take a year off to travel or care for aging parents? You're free to decide. The point isn't to escape work, it's to reclaim it, to ensure that whatever you do with your time is aligned with your values, your purpose, your joy. You no longer have to take orders or chase promotions. You don't have to worry about getting fired. You own your life. That's what the crossover point buys you, the right to choose your life on your terms. Real-life examples of the crossover point. The book shares powerful stories of ordinary people reaching the crossover point, not just millionaires or tech entrepreneurs, but teachers, artists, single parents, and folks with average incomes. One couple, for example, never earned more than $30,000 a year combined, but they lived frugally, invested diligently, and hit their crossover point in their 40s. From then on, they chose seasonal work they enjoyed, took long stretches off, and traveled during off-peak seasons when costs were low and places were peaceful. Another man worked as a park ranger. He loved his job, but didn't love the bureaucracy. After reaching his crossover point, he continued working part-time on his terms. He no longer feared layoffs or budget cuts. He worked for love, not money. These stories show that the crossover point isn't some fantasy. It's doable. It's a math problem, not magic. The role of purpose after financial independence. Here's where the chapter takes a beautiful turn. It's not just about money, it's about meaning. Once you hit your crossover point, you face a new challenge. What do I do with my life now that I don't have to work for money? This can be disorienting. For years, decades even, you've been focused on earning, saving, and tracking. Then one day, you've made it. And now what? The authors encourage you to start exploring that question before you hit the crossover point. Begin thinking now about your passions, creative outlets, causes you care about, skills you want to share, legacy you want to leave. Because financial independence without purpose is just a longer vacation. But financial independence with purpose, that's a powerful life. The chapter urges you to view money not as the goal, but as a vehicle. It's what gets you to a life of autonomy, contribution, and fulfillment. What if you don't want to quit your job? Some people love their jobs. They find purpose, joy, and connection through their work. That's great. The authors aren't anti-job. They're anti-obligation. Reaching your crossover point doesn't mean you have to quit. It means you could quit. You're not stuck. You're not afraid. You're free. And that freedom often changes how you show up to work. You're more relaxed, more assertive, more authentic. You don't have to play political games. You can speak up, take risks, and create from a place of strength. When you don't need the job, you bring your best self to it. Ironically, that often makes you more valuable. The slow burn of financial independence. The chapter title, Catching Fire, is a nod to the slow burn of independence. This isn't an overnight transformation. It's a process. Like building a fire, it starts with a spark. Maybe that first month you spend less than you earn. Then it grows. Tracking, saving, investing, watching your investment income rise, and then, one day, it catches, and your fire, your financial engine, burns hot enough to sustain your life. It's a beautiful metaphor, one that captures the spirit of the book. This isn't about retiring early as a trend. It's about reclaiming your time, your choices, your life energy, and that begins with reaching your crossover point. Not someday, but step by step, month by month, chart line by chart line. And when you get there, it won't be the end. It'll be the beginning of the life you choose to live. Chapter 9. Where to stash your cash for long-term financial freedom. After all the soul-searching, tracking, simplifying, saving, and investing, you finally reach the final piece of the puzzle. What do you do with your money now that you've reclaimed control over your life energy? This chapter zooms in on the practical mechanics of what to do with your growing savings and investment income, and how to keep it safe, steady, and sustainable. This isn't a get-rich-quick investing guide. There are no risky tips, no hot stock picks, no promises of overnight wealth. In fact, this chapter is almost the opposite. It's about low-risk, long-term, sleep-at-night investing, because the point of all this effort isn't to gamble. It's to create reliable freedom. Principles of financial independence investing. Robin and Dominguez start with a key principle. The goal of financial independence is to cover your expenses with income from capital, not to maximize net worth at all costs. That means your money should be invested in a way that produces steady, dependable cash flow, not just theoretical gains. Their investment philosophy is conservative for a reason. The closer you get to your crossover point, the less room you have for error. You're not trying to beat the market. You're trying to build a stable bridge from working for money to living on investments. The key attributes of financial independence investments are low risk, predictable return, low volatility, low or no management costs, enough return to match or exceed inflation. In this chapter, they guide readers through the available options and strategies, focusing on how to stash your cash once you've accumulated it through diligent saving and value-driven living. Safety first. First, the authors emphasize capital preservation. If your savings represent your life energy, then protecting that capital is a form of self-respect. They recommend staying away from speculative investments. This includes hot tech stocks, leveraged ETFs, penny stocks, get-rich-quick schemes, any opportunity that promises high returns with low effort. Why? Because if you lose the money you've worked so hard to save, you're not just losing dollars, you're losing years of your life. And that's a price too high to pay. Instead, they recommend choosing investments that may not be flashy but are safe, slow, and certain. Government bonds and Treasury securities. One of the most recommended vehicles is U.S. Treasury securities. These are considered one of the safest investments in the world because they're backed by the U.S. government. Treasury bonds, long-term, 10+ years, fixed interest payments. Treasury notes, mid-term, 2 to 10 years, also with fixed interest. Treasury bills, short-term, less than 1 year, sold at a discount and redeemed at face value. Tips: Treasury inflation-protected securities, bonds that adjust with inflation. These investments are ideal for financial independence seekers because they offer guaranteed interest income, protection against market volatility, a sense of predictability and calm. The authors themselves famously invested the majority of their savings in long-term U.S. Treasuries and lived off the interest, adjusting for inflation and reinvesting any surplus. Index funds. For those who want more exposure to the stock market without the risk of picking individual stocks, low-cost index funds are a great choice. Index funds track a broad market index like the S&P 500 and offer instant diversification, lower fees, steady growth over time, hands-off management. One of the advantages here is that index funds, while they fluctuate with the market, tend to grow over the long run. They're perfect for people who are still building their nest egg, but want a simple, no-fuss way to invest. Robin and Dominguez suggest combining index funds for long-term growth with bonds or TIPS for stability and income. The balance between the two depends on where you are in your financial independence journey. For example, still working full-time and saving? You can lean more into stock market index funds for growth, nearing or at the crossover point. Shift toward more bonds and fixed income investments for reliability. Certificates of deposit, CDs. CDs offer a fixed interest rate over a fixed period. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years. They're very low risk and are FDIC insured. While the returns are modest, they offer guaranteed principal, predictable return, a hedge against market volatility, a CD ladder. Staggering multiple CDs with different maturity dates is a smart strategy for ensuring ongoing access to cash without sacrificing returns. Dividend-paying stocks. Though slightly more volatile than bonds or CDs, dividend-paying stocks can be a solid part of a passive income portfolio. You own shares in established companies, think utilities, consumer staples, etc., that pay you a portion of their profits in the form of dividends. The benefits: regular income, some growth potential, compounding if you reinvest dividends. But the authors caution, don't chase high dividend yields without researching the company's stability. This option is best used in combination with safer tools, not as a standalone strategy. Real estate. Real estate can be a powerful source of income, but it's also time-intensive and requires expertise. Rental properties, if managed well, can produce steady cash flow and long-term appreciation. However, they come with risks: property taxes, maintenance costs, market fluctuations, bad tenants or vacancies. Robin and Dominguez don't discourage real estate, but advise that you treat it as a business, not a passive investment. If you're ready for the responsibilities, it can be part of a well-rounded financial independence strategy. The 4% Rule and Withdrawal Strategy. One of the most practical parts of this chapter is the discussion around how much you can safely withdraw from your investments each year without running out of money. The general rule of thumb is the 4% rule. If you withdraw 4% of your total capital annually, your money should last 30 years or more, even with inflation and market changes. So if your annual expenses are $30,000, you need $30,000 divided by 0.04 equals $750,000. If your expenses are $20,000 per year, you only need $500,000 to be financially independent. Of course, this is a guideline, not a guarantee, but it gives you a target, and it shows you that financial independence may be closer than you think. And if your lifestyle is lean, your crossover point and your required nest egg is far more achievable than society makes it seem. Diversification and simplicity. The authors strongly advocate for keeping your investments diversified and simple. Complexity breeds confusion, and confusion leads to stress, bad decisions, and dependence on financial experts. You want to build a system that you understand completely, requires minimal maintenance, produces consistent results. No mystery, no stress, just a plan you can count on. Emotional resilience and patience. The final message in this chapter is about emotional maturity. Investing isn't just about numbers, it's about mindset. Markets go up and down. Inflation changes. Interest rates fluctuate, but your peace of mind doesn't have to. If you've built your life on clarity, sufficiency, and intentional choices, your investments don't need to be flashy. They need to be resilient. Your best asset isn't your portfolio. It's your ability to stay calm, focused, and faithful to your plan. That's the true endgame of your money or your life. Not wealth in the traditional sense, but financial serenity. Conclusion: the final freedom. When you stash your cash wisely, you're not just preparing for the future. You're anchoring your freedom in the present. You're free from fear, free from dependence, free from the treadmill. You've built a life based on enough, and now your money quietly supports that life. Not to impress anyone, not to accumulate endlessly, but to sustain your one wild and precious life with dignity, peace, and purpose. Recap of Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. Chapter 1. The Money Trap, the Old Roadmap for Money. We start with a bold claim. The way we've been taught to think about money is broken. The old roadmap says to work hard, earn more, buy more, and retire late. But millions follow this map and end up stressed, in debt, and unfulfilled. The authors call this the money trap, where we spend our lives chasing income just to keep up with a lifestyle that doesn't actually make us happy. Here we confront the core idea that money is life energy. Every dollar you spend represents hours of your time you'll never get back. When you see money this way, suddenly that $100 purchase isn't just cash. It's 5 hours of your life. This shift sets the stage for every step that follows. Chapter 2. Money ain't what it used to be, and it never was. This chapter challenges the illusion that money is solid and real. In truth, money is made up, fiat currency backed by nothing but collective belief. It's a symbol, and it means different things to different people. Freedom, security, love, power, control. Understanding your emotional relationship with money is crucial. We often spend not because we need to, but because we're trying to feel better, fill emotional voids, keep up appearances, or prove our worth. By unpacking what money represents in your life, you can begin to use it consciously instead of compulsively. Chapter 3. Where is it all going? Now it's time to look at the numbers. Most people have no idea where their money goes, and that's the problem. This chapter introduces the daily money log and monthly tabulation, a simple system for tracking every dollar you earn and spend. It's not about restriction or budgeting, it's about awareness. When you track your spending honestly, you start to see patterns, leaks, and emotional triggers. You begin to ask, was this worth the life energy it cost me? And that single question begins to change everything. Chapter 4. How much is enough? The quest for happiness. More money doesn't equal more happiness. That's the myth. This chapter introduces the fulfillment curve, a visual way to understand how spending impacts happiness. Up to a point, more spending increases fulfillment. But after that point, returns diminish and eventually go negative. You learn to find your personal point of enough. Not too little, not too much, just right. Enough brings contentment, simplicity, and freedom. And when you stop needing more, you need less money and less time to earn it. Chapter 5. Getting it out in the open. This is the moment of truth. You calculate your lifetime earnings and your current net worth, the total of everything you've made and everything you still have. For many, it's eye-opening to realize they've earned hundreds of thousands of dollars and saved almost none of it. But instead of guilt, you gain clarity. And then you build the wall chart, a monthly visual tracker of your income, expenses, and investment income. This chart becomes your compass. It shows your progress and guides you toward the ultimate destination, the crossover point. Chapter 6. The American Dream, on a shoestring. Now that you're conscious of spending, this chapter shows how to live a rich, full life without a big income. It reframes frugality as freedom, not deprivation. You learn that happiness comes from alignment with your values, not constant consumption. You hear stories of families, singles, and couples living joyfully on modest incomes. You get practical strategies, fix things instead of replacing them, swap services with neighbors, grow your own food, and discover pleasures that don't cost a dime. It's about living well, on purpose, with less. Chapter 7. For love or money, valuing your life energy, work and income. Now we go back to the source of all income, your work. But instead of asking how much do you make, this chapter asks, how much are you really earning per hour? You calculate your real hourly wage after subtracting taxes, commuting, childcare, clothes, and other work-related costs. The result is often sobering. You may be earning far less than you think and spending your best hours earning money that doesn't bring joy. This chapter pushes you to evaluate your job honestly. Is it aligned with your values? Is it draining your energy? Could you earn less and live better? And it introduces the difference between money work for survival and love work for fulfillment, encouraging you to integrate both into your life. Chapter 8. Catching Fire, the crossover point. This is the moment we've been building toward. When your investment income equals your monthly expenses, you reach the crossover point. At that point, you are financially independent. You no longer need to work for money. Your money, your stored life energy, now supports your life. You don't have to quit your job, though you can. You don't have to do nothing unless you want to. You get to choose. And that's what true wealth is. Freedom of time, freedom of purpose, freedom to live by design. The chapter also reminds you the crossover point is not the end. It's the beginning of a life defined by purpose, contribution, and joy. Chapter 9. Where to stash your cash for long-term financial freedom. Finally, we arrive at the how. Now that you've saved enough money, how do you invest it wisely? This chapter recommends low-risk, income-generating investments, U.S. Treasury bonds, index funds, certificates of deposit, and dividend-paying stocks. The goal isn't huge returns, it's stability and sufficiency. You learn about the 4% rule, a safe withdrawal strategy to make your nest egg last, and the importance of capital preservation. You avoid risky investments and financial fads. Simplicity, diversification, and emotional resilience are your best tools. The takeaway: you don't need to be an expert to manage your money. You need a plan that's safe, predictable, and aligned with your purpose. Final thoughts. Your money or your life isn't just a financial program, it's a life program. It's about transforming your relationship with money, with work, and most importantly, with time. Because money is just a stand-in for life energy, and your time, your one wild, precious, irreplaceable life, is too valuable to waste. Through 9 powerful steps, you learn to track where your money is going, align spending with values, find your enough, save aggressively and invest intelligently, reach financial independence on any income. And ultimately, you discover that freedom isn't about having more. It's about needing less and being deeply, joyfully satisfied with what you already have. That's the promise. That's the journey. That's the new map. The old one got us stuck. This one sets us free, and there it is, the powerful perspective-shifting roadmap from your money or your life. This isn't just a book about money. It's about freedom, awareness, and choosing a life that truly belongs to you. The core message? You don't have to stay stuck in a cycle of working harder just to spend more. You can reclaim your time. You can align your money with what really matters. And you can start living with purpose on your own terms. Financial independence isn't reserved for the wealthy. It's not about chasing more. It's about needing less, spending wisely, and honoring your life energy. When every dollar becomes a conscious choice, your money becomes a tool, not a trap. So what's your next move? Will you start tracking every dollar? Redefine your enough? Set your sights on your own crossover point? Whatever it is, start now. Because every mindful step you take brings you closer to true financial peace. If this summary sparked something in you, I'd love to hear it. What hit home for you? What's one thing you're going to do differently starting today? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to share this episode with someone who's ready to shift from surviving to truly thriving. And if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss more life-changing ideas like this. Remember, your money is your life energy. Use it to build a life you don't need a vacation from.